प्रतिमा हरि मंदिरे वंदे मातरम्। गम्भीरकमलश प्रहरधारिणी कमला कमलदल विहारिणी नमामि त्वां नमामि करणामलां मधुरां सुजलां मातरं वन्दे मातरं श्यामलां सरलां सुष्मितां भूषितां धरणी भरणी मातरं वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरम्।
Namaskar.
Thank you all. It was mesmerizing. And thank you for the Swadeshi Code members, Madhurima, Miss Shubhangi, and Master Arka for illuminating the evening with the inauguration song. Shubhasayam to all. And let me introduce myself. My name is Preetam, General Secretary of Swadeshi Sangha, Karnataka. Professionally, I am an engineer working as Senior IT Project Manager. And let me say that it is really an honor to be given this opportunity to anchor this event. And my heartfelt thanks to all the attendees and Himadri sir for giving me this opportunity. Great things happen when there is a gathering of great minds. It is with great anticipation that I welcome you all to this forum. Social responsibility is our duty towards the society, and nationalism is our devotion towards the motherland. I'm very delighted to see the count of attendees who have joined this session voluntarily with keen interest towards society to understand more about the legacy of Swami Vivekananda, which was carried on by Dr. Shyama Prasad Mookerjee. Thank you all for joining. A round of applause to you. And I want to say you that the verses which you sang, the Vande Mataram, was very motivating and it is causing goosebumps, invoking the spirit of nationalism. Truly a bliss to be a part of this forum, and the rhythm is still resonating in the air. Thank you all once again. Now I request Sri Deepankar Saha, a patriot, nationalist, and a very dedicated Karyakarta of Swadeshi Sangha, West Bengal, to introduce our keynote speaker, Himadri Das.
হিমাদ্রি দাস জন্মগত দেশপ্রেমিক এবং ভারত মাতার স্বয়ংসেবক। তিনি সচিদানন্দন দাস এবং শ্রীমতী বাণী দাসের দ্বিতীয় পুত্র। জন্ম কলকাতার বিখ্যাত ব্রাহ্ম পরিবারে। তার প্রপিতামহ সক্রিয়ভাবে বাংলা রেনেসাঁয় জড়িত ছিলেন। একই সঙ্গে তারা রামকৃষ্ণ মিশন ও রাষ্ট্রীয় স্বয়ংসেবক সংঘের সাথেও জড়িত ছিলেন। মিস্টার হিমাদ্রি দাস আসানসোল রামকৃষ্ণ মিশন স্কুল থেকে পড়াশোনা শেষ করেছেন। ইনস্টিটিউশন অফ ইঞ্জিনিয়ার্স ইন্ডিয়া ইলেকট্রনিক্স এবং কমিউনিকেশন থেকে ইঞ্জিনিয়ারিং করেছেন। তিনি স্নাতকোত্তর এমএস ডিগ্রি পেয়েছেন বিটস পিলানি রাজস্থান থেকে এবং এমবিএ করেছেন কোভিন্টি বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় যুক্তরাষ্ট্র ইউকে থেকে। তিনি সত্যি আমাদের কাছে এক মহান অনুপ্রেরণা। এখন আমি মাননীয় হিমাদ্রি দাস মহাশয়কে অনুরোধ করছি আজকের অনুষ্ঠানের মূল কিনোট বক্তৃতা প্রদান করতে। নমস্কার।
নমস্কার মহারাজ। আমাদের পরম ঠাকুর, আজকে আমরা একটা খুব ভালো দিনে আর খুব ভালো জায়গায়, পবিত্র জায়গায় বসে আমরা এই প্রোগ্রামটা শুরু করতে পেরেছি। এটা আমাদের বলে না, এটা ভগবানের ইচ্ছায়। তো আজকের এই প্রোগ্রামের মধ্যে আমি বেশিক্ষণ 3 মিনিট নেব জাস্ট টু একটা কনটেক্সট সেট করার জন্য। আপনারা আজকে দেখছেন যে এটা একটা, আমরা মুখার্জিকে একরকম ভাবে দেখেছি, ঠাকুরকে একরকম দেখেছি, শ্রী শ্রী রামকৃষ্ণদেব আর বিবেকানন্দকে। আজকে দেখুন আমরা সেই মনে হচ্ছে শিবাজির যুগে ফিরে এসেছি, যেখানে আমাদের গুরুদেব রয়েছেন, আমরা তো বিবেকানন্দকে দেখতে পাইনি, আমাদের বিবেকানন্দের রিপ্রেজেন্টেটিভ আমাদের বিবেকানন্দের রিপ্রেজেন্টেটিভ এইখানে মহারাজ স্বামী স্বামী তো এখানে রয়েছেন আমাদের সঙ্গে। তো একটাই খালি আমি এইখানে খুব শর্টে শেষ করব যে আমরা আজকের প্রোগ্রামটা আমরা এইভাবে নিলাম কেন, যে অনেকে তো অনেক সময়তেই তিরোধান দিবস পালন করেন শ্যামাপ্রসাদ মুখার্জির, কিন্তু একটা যদি আপনারা ডিপলি দেখেন যে বিবেকানন্দ কি, বিবেকানন্দ যদি না থাকতেন তাহলে এই মডার্ন যুগে ভারত গোটা পৃথিবী থাকতো না। বিবেকানন্দ খুঁজে বেরিয়েছেন শান্তি, গোটা ভারতবর্ষ খুঁজে বেরিয়েছেন, নিয়ে উনি ভারতবর্ষের শুধু ভারতবর্ষের মুক্তি না বিশ্বের মুক্তির কথা খুঁজে বেরিয়েছেন। আর বিবেকানন্দ যদি না থাকতেন আজকে স্বদেশী ন্যাশনালিজম, রামকৃষ্ণ মিশন, RSS, বিশ্ব হিন্দু পরিষদ বা আমরা যারাই বলি যে আমরা ন্যাশনালিস্ট, তারা কেউ তো থাকতাম না। আর এই বিবেকানন্দ যদি না থাকতেন তাহলে কেউ যেরকম থাকতো না, ঠিক সেই রকম আমাদের শ্যামাপ্রসাদ মুখার্জিও বিবেকানন্দেরই ভক্ত। উনি তৈরি করেছেন। তো বিবেকানন্দ যদি না থাকতেন তাহলে বঙ্কিমচন্দ্রও তৈরি হতেন না। আর বঙ্কিমচন্দ্র না, আর আপনারা যদি দেখেন যে বঙ্কিমচন্দ্র থেকেই কিন্তু আমাদের ভারতবর্ষের স্বাধীনতার সংগ্রাম শুরু হয়েছে। সেটা হচ্ছে প্রি ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্ট, স্বাধীনতার পূর্বে আমাদের সন্ন্যাসী বিদ্রোহ দিয়ে প্রথম স্বাধীনতা সংগ্রাম শুরু হয়েছিল। শুরু হওয়ার পর সেইখান থেকে বঙ্কিমচন্দ্র বিবেকানন্দ থেকে 10 বছরের ছোট ছিলেন, বন্দে মাতরম লিখেছেন, ভারতকে প্রথম একটা মায়ের রূপ দিয়েছেন। পোস্ট ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্ট পিরিয়ডে বিবেকানন্দের যে ধারা, ঠাকুর শ্রী শ্রী রামকৃষ্ণ দেবের যে ধারা, ভারতকে রক্ষা করা, ভারতকে তুলে ধরা, বিবেকানন্দ বলে গেছিলেন যে আমাদের নেক্সট 50 ইয়ার্স আমাদের একমাত্র আরাধ্য দেবতা হবে ভারত মাতা। তো আমরা কিছু লোক তখন ফলো করেছিলেন, শ্যামাপ্রসাদ মুখার্জি সেইটাকে ছড়িয়েছিলেন। আর আজকে আমরা দেখতে চাইছি যে শ্যামাপ্রসাদ মুখার্জি কিভাবে জীবন দিয়েছেন, আর আজকে ওনার জীবন দেওয়ার জন্য আমাদের দেশ বেঁচে আছে। কাশ্মীর যেটা চলেই গেছিল, বাংলা যেটা চলে গেছিল, আসাম, নর্থ ইস্ট পুরোই চলে গেছিল, উনি সেটাকে ধরে রাখতে পেরেছেন। আর আজকে আপনারা দেখেছেন যে ওনার ফলোয়ার্স যারা আমরা সবাই রয়েছি, তারা মাতৃভূমিকে কিভাবে প্রোটেক্ট করে চলেছি। আর আজকে কাশ্মীরে আপনারা জানেন যে 370ও নাই। তো আমি আর ডিটেলসে ইলাবোরেট করব না। তো একটাই কথা, যদি বিবেকানন্দ যদি এই ধরিত্রীতে বা এই প্ল্যানেটে এসে থাকেন বিশ্বকে মুক্তি দেওয়ার জন্য, রামকৃষ্ণদেব ওনাকে ক্রিয়েট করেছিলেন, তাহলে বিবেকানন্দ ক্রিয়েট করেছেন শ্যামাপ্রসাদ মুখার্জিকে, বঙ্কিমচন্দ্রকে, আরো অনেককে। এইটুকুনি বলেই আমি আমার ছোট্ট বক্তব্য শেষ করছি। বন্দে মাতরম, ভারত মাতা কি জয়, জয় শ্রী শ্রী রামকৃষ্ণ দেবের জয়।
Thank you, Himadriji, sir, for this captivating speech. It was wonderful. However, I would want to give you an introduction in English, whichever what Dipankar Saha had stated. Himadri Das is a born patriot and Swayam Sevak of Bharat Mata. He is the second son of Sachidananda Das and Srimati Bani Das. Born in a renowned Brahmo family of Kolkata, his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather were actively involved in the Renaissance of Bengal. At the same time, they were closely associated with Ramakrishna Mission and Rashtriya Swayam Sevak. Mr. Himadri Das completed his schooling from Asansol Ramakrishna Mission and completed B.Tech in Electronics and Communication Engineering from Institute of Engineers, India. He got his postgraduate MS degree from the Coveted BITS Pilani, Rajasthan, and MBA from Coventry University, UK. He is a great inspiration for us. Now I request all of you to give a round of applause to him and for his captivating speech. Sorry?
I spoke in Bengali. Okay.
And now I request Dr. Nagratna, President of Swadeshi Sangha, Karnataka unit, who is a patriot, selfless and dedicated personality, who is not only a practicing doctor by profession, however, an avid writer whose many books are published. To introduce the president of the event, Dr. Param Pujya, Divya Swamiji, Tattvarupananda Ji, Secretary Ramakrishna Math, Harisuru, Bengaluru.
Namaste. Brief introduction of Parama Pujya Divya Sannidhi Swami Tattvarupa Nandaji. Swami Tattvarupa Nandaji is a monk of Ramakrishna Math. He had his spiritual initiation from Reverend Swami Vishweshwara Nandaji Maharaj, 10th President of the Order in the year 1971. He joined the Ramakrishna Order at Chennai Mutt in the year 1973. He had his sannyasa diksha from his guru in the year 1983. After serving 2 years at Chandigarh, he was in Mumbai for 25 years till 2010. Later, he was the head of Trivandrum Center from 2011 till he took charge of Ramakrishna Mutt also. All along his monastic life, he served the organization in the field of education, culture, rural, medical, and tribal development, and relief operation, etc. Swamiji is a monk of simple habits, man of few words, and with amiable and lovable nature. Thank you, one and all. Jai Hind.
Thanks a lot for the
Thank
outstanding
you. Jai
introduction.
Hind.
Now I request the president of the event, Swami Tattvarupananda Ji, to address the forum.
Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Sachisuka Swarupaya Swamineta Paharine. Today we have assembled on the occasion of the 67th Martyrdom Day of Dr. Sham Prasad Mookerjee, who was one of the luminaries in the post-independence day, and also even the preparation was there even during the pre-independence day. So this was due to the inspiration he drew from Swami Vivekananda's the nationalistic ideas and what Swami Vivekananda stood for, the national ideal, renunciation and service. So this united India, or uniting the India, was the main role at that time, because there was almost disintegration of the India, and at that time Shyam Prasad Mukherjee, he took the challenge to unite India. So because of him only we have got especially the West Bengal, what we call today. So it was decided to include under the Pakistan. So this such things, even the Jammu and Kashmir also was struggling for that. So we have a distinguished honorable Governor of Meghalaya, Tathagata, who has well read about this, and also he knows many details and will be enlightened by his address. So on this occasion, the endeavor was cooked up by Dr. Hemadri Das, who took a lot of pains to organize this function. And it is very necessary that we must recall such a great personality, so that even the coming generations know what the luminaries we had and how they struggled for the independence of India, independence of India, and also the united India. That's why we must bring in these ideas again and again, bring to the light, because many of us do not know much of these details about these great people. Especially Dr. Sham Prasad Mukherjee's contribution is very great, and many of us will not know about all this. But such these things are once again recalled when they observe these days like that. Then we will be able to know much about these great things. So we again once again thank to the organizers for having this very meaningful event, and it will very much educate you to the all Indians. So I thank them once again and conclude. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Swamiji. Namaskar. Thank you.
Now I request our Honorable Chief Guest, Professor Tathagata Roy, to address the convention.
Respected audience, I have already been introduced, but there are two aspects of my introduction which are very relevant today, particularly in the presence of the respected Maharaj, Swami Tattvarupananda ji. I am an initiated, that is Dikshit Bhakt of Ramakrishna Mission. I received my Diksha or initiation from Swami Prabhananda ji, the Vice President, and I have also been a Swamsevak for more than 30 years now. Let me now get on to the subject. I intend to show to you how Swami Vivekananda's thoughts have influenced Dr. Shama Prasad Mookerjee, and how Swami Vivekananda's thoughts were relevant to the contemporary politics, not just contemporary, but dating from the time when Dr. Mookerjee had entered politics, even until today, how it has been partially followed, partially not followed, and to the extent it has not been followed, to what extent we have suffered, I intend to show that. Now, we all know the great achievements of Swami Vivekananda. He had introduced India and Sanatana Dharma to the whole world through his oration at the Chicago Parliament of Religions in 1883. Got a lot of Western disciples, and through them reached out to the whole world and taught them about the greatness of Sanatana Dharma and particularly Advaita Vedanta. Swamiji not only did that, but certain things that he had said have remained. They are, of course, the saying of sages, ancient sages, but certain things that he had said remain eternal truths. I would particularly refer to one which is very often quoted, that is, arise, awake, and stop not till your goal is reached. Uttishtata, jagrata, prappa paran nibodhata. This is a saying of the ancient sages, possibly from the Vedas, that Swamiji was very fond of quoting, and which remains relevant today and will remain relevant for all times in future. Now, how are these things relevant? How exactly did these find application to the politics of the times of Dr. Shama Prasad Mookerjee stretching up to today? I have to quote a little bit from one of Swamiji's lectures. This was delivered at the Victoria Hall, Madras, that is today's Chennai, Victoria Hall, Chennai, and it has been printed in a series of lectures called the Lectures from Colombo to Almora. Now I'll just read it. It's not a very long passage. In India, religious life forms the center, the keynote of the whole music of national life. And if any nation attempts to throw off its national vitality, the direction which has become its own through the transmission of centuries, that nation dies if it succeeds in the attempt. And therefore, if you succeed in the attempt to throw off your religion and take up either politics or society or any other thing at your center as the vitality of your national life, the result will be that you will become extinct. You will become extinct. To prevent this, you must make all and everything work through that vitality of your religion. Let all your nerves vibrate through the backbone of your religion. I have seen that I cannot preach even religion to Americans without showing its practical effect in social life. I could not preach religion in England without showing the wonderful political changes that Vedanta would bring. So in India, social reform has to be preached by showing how much more spiritual a life a new system will bring. Now, why is this relevant? You see, because an exactly opposite thing has been proposed by our late lamented Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. He had said in his book, The Discovery of India, that India must move away from religion and into science. This is, I would say, is an immature statement because religion and science are complementary things. Science cannot exist without religion because science can only answer the questions how. Science can never answer the question why. And we find that when we try to get into the very rarefied heights of science, like quantum mechanics, of which I know practically nothing, we find that we are gradually coming into a sort of union between religion and science. We think of something very big, say, for instance, a star. But a star is also ephemeral. It is not permanent. At some point of time, it becomes a red giant, then it collapses and becomes a black hole. Now, science has found out that it does become a black hole. But why does it become a black hole? Science cannot answer. That is where religion comes in. And that is why, in spite of predictions by a lot of people, including Karl Marx, towards the beginning of the 20th century, religion has not vanished from human life. On the other hand, the hold of religion on human life has hardened. More than that, what Swamiji had said is that religion is very fundamental to the life of an Indian as compared to any other country. Therefore, you cannot get rid of religion. Yet, this is what Nehru had advocated, and this is what eventually we did by adopting a secular, so-called secular constitution. Now, this word secular, the word secular is a very misinterpreted word. What does the word secular mean? Most people who mouth this word have never thumbed through the dictionary to find out the meaning of this word. Secular means that which has got nothing to do with religion. Secular is totally opposed to religion. Say, brushing your teeth is a secular act. Polishing your shoes is a secular act. Shaking a tree to get fruits is a secular act. These have got nothing to do with religion. Now, in India, can we have a secular thing that is completely bereft of religion? Swamiji said we cannot, but Nehru said yes. And that is why a lot of distortions entered into our national life. Our country was partitioned in 1947. And this partition caused misery to millions and millions of people on both frontiers, both in the West and the East. Now, the country was partitioned on the basis of what? The country was partitioned on the basis of religion. It was not partitioned on the basis of politics, nor of language, nor of ethnicity, anything else. Only on the basis of religion. But if we, by force, try to negate, try to ignore this role of religion in national life, then these distortions are bound to come in. Dr. Shyama Prasad Mookerjee was one person who had digested Swamiji's utterances, which I referred to a little while back, and in which he had tried to apply in his political life. He came at loggerheads with Nehru on this basis. And the result was a lot of misery for a lot of people. I'll give you a few examples from Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee's life to illustrate what kind of a thing it was. See, until 1939, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was totally outside the realm of politics. He was an educator. He was the youngest vice chancellor Calcutta University, or for that matter, any university in this country had. In the year 1934, he became a vice chancellor of Calcutta University at the age of 33. And he gave a great account of himself. He introduced a lot of reforms in Calcutta University. Thereafter, in 1937, there was an election in Undivided Bengal, as a result of which no party got absolute majority. There were three parties in the fray. One was Congress, which got most of the Hindu votes and some Muslim votes. Second was Muslim League, which got only Muslim votes. And the third was a party called the Krishak Praja Party, which was led by Fazlul Haq, which was basically a secular party, but its members were all Muslims, because it was basically a peasants' party. And Dr. Mookerjee intended that this party, Fazlul Haq intended that this party will henceforth work only for the upliftment of peasants. But it didn't work that way. So eventually it became a Muslim party, but still Fazlul Haq was a irreligious person, in the sense that he was not a communal Muslim politician like the Muslim League politicians. But what happened is that because the Congress, for some strange reason, failed to form a coalition with, or rather refused to form a coalition with the Krishak Mazdoor Praja Party, they were pushed into the lap of the Muslim League, and together they formed a party which was terribly communal and which did great injustice to the Hindus. As a result of that, the entire Hindu society in Bengal rose in ferment, and some very outstanding leaders, among them Swami Pranavanandaji, the founder of Bharat Sevashram Sangha, he and certain others like Ashutosh Lahiri, Sir Manmothanath Mukherjee and all, they requested Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee to come into politics and hold the rudder for guiding the Hindus, the Bengali Hindus, in the correct direction. Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee did it because he understood the importance of religion in our national life and in politics. Meanwhile, the Congress, which had the Hindu vote, almost the entire Hindu vote, at its beck and call, because of the outstanding personality of Gandhiji, particularly Gandhiji, Congress went on in its own way, professing that we are a party not of Hindus, but of all religions, Hindus, Muslims, everyone. What was the result? The Muslim League was a party for the Muslims. Krishak Mazdoor Praja Party was also a party for the Muslims. And Congress said, we are a party for all. So who was a party for Hindus? But it became almost axiomatic not to talk of being a party for Hindus, because we were negating the influence of the importance of religion in our national life, in our politics. And that did great disservice to the Hindus. Now, when the country was about to become independent and Lord Mountbatten had been sent by the British government to India to negotiate with the Indian leaders as to how the country, how the transfer of power should take place. Mind you, at that time, even at that time, the decision had not been taken that India would be partitioned. But at that time, the negotiation was going on. It was a tripartite thing going on between the British on the one hand and Muslim League and Congress on the other. The Congress was so eager to jump to power. They were so dying for power that they were prepared to accept any kind of sacrifice, throw the Hindus down any hole, in order that the leaders could become prime minister, deputy prime minister, president, etc. So they did it. What did they do? They conceded partition. They conceded partition. Dr. Mookerjee talked against partition, opposed partition. Gandhiji said, vivisect me but not India, partition won't take place. But on the fateful day, when the partition proposal was placed before the Congress leaders and the Muslim League leaders were of course dying for partition. But the Congress leaders at that time, Gandhiji was not present. Gandhiji said, today is my day of silence, I'll not come. So Gandhiji remained silent and the rest of the leaders jumped into it. And the result was that the country was decided to be partitioned. When the country was decided to be partitioned, then Dr. Mookerjee said that if India is to be partitioned, then Bengal also must be partitioned. Why? Because Bengal was a Muslim majority province at that time. And if Bengal is not partitioned, then the Bengali Hindus, who constituted about 47% of the total population, they would become dhimmis. They would become the second class or third class citizens, non-Muslim citizens in a Muslim country. Therefore, we cannot let that happen. We cannot let the whole of Bengal go to Pakistan. Bengal must be partitioned so that the Hindu majority parts of the state can be separated and they can be joined to India. And Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee moved it. He made it possible. He made it happen. Congress, which had initially opposed it or was ambivalent about it, Congress came out and totally in support of it. As a result of that, West Bengal happened. As a result of that, West Bengal became a part of India. Bengali Hindus found a homeland. The northeast of India remained joined to the rest of India. And I am talking personally about me. I, today, as a Bengali Hindu, can hold my head high and say that my first parichay, my first identity is as a Indian citizen. As a Indian citizen, I would not have been an Indian citizen. God knows what would have happened if Dr. Mookerjee had not succeeded. But by the grace of God, he succeeded because he had conviction behind him and he had the thoughts of Swami Vivekananda at the back of his head. This was a signal step. Actually, what Dr. Mookerjee achieved in his whole life, he was in politics for a very short time, only 14 years. From 1939, where he first came into politics, till 1953 when he died. And in these 14 years, he managed to get the partition of West Bengal done. He practically snatched the Hindu majority part of Bengal from the jaws of Jinnah, who was determined to have Calcutta. Because at that time, Calcutta was not the rundown city that it is today. It was the biggest urban center of India. It was the industrial capital of India, and it was said to be the second city in the British Commonwealth. But Dr. Mookerjee managed to snatch it out of the hands of the Muslim League, and we can still hear the anguish of the Muslim League for having lost Calcutta. So with all these things, Dr. Mookerjee achieved West Bengal, but he could not achieve Kashmir. He fought for Kashmir, he fought for the integration of Kashmir into India, but he had to lay down his life for it because through a very unfortunate, I should say, conspiracy hatched by Jawaharlal Nehru and Sheikh Abdullah, he had to lay down his life. How exactly this happened, I'll tell you in a nutshell. Swami, Dr. Mookerjee had decided to go to Jammu, not Srinagar. Jammu, the Hindu majority part of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, to at the invitation of a leader of Jammu called Pandit Premnath Dogra, who led a party called the Jammu Praja Parishad. And he had started from Delhi on the 10th of May 1953. He held a number of meetings right through Punjab, beginning with Sonipat, Nilokheri, all these places were in Punjab. They are in Haryana now. Then Ambala, then Sirhind, Phagwara. After holding meetings in these places, he reached Pathankot. Now, when he reached Pathankot, before that, the Deputy Commissioner of Gurdaspur district met him and said that, sir, I'll have to arrest him because you are about to enter Jammu and Kashmir without a permit. At that time, the system was, until that day, the system was that the government of India used to issue a permit for Indian citizens to enter the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir. Imagine that. And you are entering the state of Jammu and Kashmir without the permit, so we'll have to arrest you. Dr. Mookerjee said, do what you like, do what your duty tells you. I shall try to go to Jammu. But the very next day in the morning, he said that this deputy commissioner came, saluted him and said, sir, I have received a message from Delhi that we must facilitate your entry into Jammu and Kashmir. Facilitate. The previous day he was saying, I would have to arrest you because you are trying to enter Jammu and Kashmir. Today, my duty is to facilitate. He got hold of a jeep also. Even the jeep driver protested, saying that mere paas Jammu jaane ka permit nahi hai. This deputy commissioner told him, tum chale jao, tumhare piche permit pahunch jayega. Then Dr. Mookerjee started. He believed that deputy commissioner. Actually, the deputy commissioner, it's not that poor fellow's fault. He didn't know what was happening. So Dr. Mookerjee started, and as soon as he came in the middle of the Ravi Bridge at a place called Madhopur, Dr. Mookerjee was stopped by the Jammu and Kashmir police, saying that you are about to break the law and order, you are about to cause a disturbance in the law and order of the state. Dr. Mookerjee said, I have to go to Jammu. They didn't stop him, mind you. He was a lone man with just two companions. The police did not stop him. On the other hand, they let him enter. Instructions were like that. They let him enter Jammu and Kashmir. And after entering Jammu and Kashmir, they took out another order, said that you have entered Jammu and Kashmir, you are likely to cause, not because you don't have a permit, but because you are likely to cause disturbance of law and order, therefore we are arresting. So what was this game full of inconsistencies? It was actually a conspiracy hatched to get Dr. Mookerjee into the state of Jammu and Kashmir and to get him out of the jurisdiction of the Indian Supreme Court. Because at that time, the jurisdiction of the Indian Supreme Court did not extend to Jammu and Kashmir, and as a result, if one is arrested in Jammu and Kashmir, there was no recourse except to petition the High Court of Jammu and Kashmir, which was heavily partisan. If he had been arrested in Punjab, as would have happened if the deputy commissioner had arrested him, or as would have happened if the Jammu and Kashmir police did not permit him to enter Jammu and Kashmir. But they permitted him and then they arrested him. So he was trapped in this thing. Had he been arrested in Punjab, a simple petition for habeas corpus would have secured his freedom in a matter of days. But here he was arrested, he was taken inside Jammu and Kashmir, he was incarcerated in a bungalow, in a cottage outside Srinagar town, some 15 kilometers away from Srinagar town, on the Dal Lake, on top of a hillock, without a telephone, without radio, and without space to walk about. See, he had some problems with his health, which were later diagnosed to be unstable angina. And as a result of that, he was advised to regularly take walks. Now, there was no space to walk in that cottage. And when he complained that there is no space to walk, let me walk outside. The guard said, sir, we can't do anything to you without the personal say-so of Sheikh Abdullah. So he couldn't walk. To make a long story short, on the 22nd of June, he suffered a massive heart attack. Even after the heart attack, he was made to walk down from that hillock. He was not taken in an ambulance. He was taken in a taxi to the hospital, to the government hospital. Imagine, Dr. Mookerjee at that time was the virtual leader of the opposition in the Indian Lok Sabha. But he was taken to a gynecological ward of a government hospital and given very, very indifferent treatment. And at the end, some injection was pushed into him, which possibly caused his death. This part, of course, is very murky because Jammu and Kashmir and government Sheikh Abdullah would not make plain what exactly had happened. But this is what I have been able to piece together by questioning a large number of people, among them Balraj Madhok, who was a very close person of Dr. Mookerjee, and Dr. Mookerjee's daughter, Shobita Banerjee, and a few others, Kedarnath Sani, and a few others here and there. And this was the end of the person. But did his dream die? He had gone to Kashmir to cause the total integration of the state of Jammu and Kashmir in India. Did his dream die? At that time, Nehru and Sheikh Abdullah did not permit it. But the dream remained and it came true. The dream was made real in August 2019 when the Article 370 and Article 35A were abrogated and Jammu and Kashmir was completely integrated in the Indian state, and his dream came true. So this is more or less a part of a chapter in Dr. Mookerjee's life and how he carried on the lessons that he had learned from Swamiji. He did not balk, he did not stop, because he had arisen, he had awakened, and he did not stop until his goal was reached. That was Dr. Shyama Prasad Mookerjee. That was his greatness, and that is why we still remember him, in spite of the fact that the powers that be in India, principally the Congress party, they have tried to make him, to make the public forget about him, but we have not forgotten about him. And particularly after his dream has come true, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mookerjee Amar Rahe. Dr. Shyama Prasad Mookerjee Amar Rahe. Dr. Shyama Prasad Mookerjee Amar Rahe. Namaskar. Bharat Mata Ki Jai.
A big round of applause.
Thank you
It
so
was an exceptional speech. It was
Yes.
really an exceptional speech. It was thought-provoking, and I'm still unable to digest the facts. I was really moved. I'm not saying as an anchor, but I'm saying from the bottom of my heart. And it was really mind-blowing, and learned how science and religion should coexist. First time I understood the meaning of secular and some bitter truths. Thank you so much for exposing it. And now there is a question and answer session. Please let us know if you have any questions. Could you please put in the questions if you have any questions?
I have a question here, Honorable Governor Tathagata Roy, our chief guest. Sir, actually, what was the dream of Shyama Prasad Mookerjee when he has come to the politics, and how much actually we could able to fulfill as of today? I think that you are very senior, you know so many things. So could you please elaborate and where actually if we are lagging, which side we are lagging, and what is wrong we are doing, and how to mitigate these kinds of things. So over to you, sir.
You must understand the goings on in his life. He was not in politics earlier. He came to politics because the Bengali Hindus were being tortured, they were being persecuted by this Muslim League government. So his immediate objective was to provide justice for Bengali Hindus. But he was not in a position to do so because although he had managed to snatch Fazlul away from the clutches of the Muslim League and he had formed a secular or irreligious cabinet, that cabinet was voted thrown out of power by the machinations of a British governor called Sir George Herbert. But Dr. Mookerjee struggled to get justice for Bengali Hindus until 1947, and his act of being able to wrest West Bengal out of the hands of Jinnah, out of the jaws of Jinnah, I should say, was his first achievement. So he got justice for the Hindus of Bengal, for the Bengali Hindus. Next thing that happened is that in East Bengal there was a pogrom in 1950. A pogrom is an organized murder, rape, and persecution process. As a result of that, some 50,000 Hindus died in 1950. Some 50,000 Hindus died, and a total number of about 1.2 crores of Hindus were driven out of East Bengal. Out of that, my extended family is one because our roots are in a place called Brahmanbadia in Bangladesh. So these 1.2 million Hindus were driven out and they came and settled in West Bengal. And that was further proof what a great thing that Dr. Mookerjee had done. Because if there were no West Bengal, where would they have come? The next thing that happened is that Dr. Mookerjee applied his mind to Kashmir. Meanwhile, he had left the cabinet, of which he was a member. He had been made a member, although he was not a congressman. Gandhiji wished that Dr. Shyama Prasad Mookerjee should be invited to become a member in the cabinet in 1947, but he resigned in 1950 because the refugees who were coming, Hindu refugees who were coming from East Bengal, were being treated in a very cavalier fashion. That is another big story. I don't want to go into it. So he had all these short-term objectives which he was fulfilling one by one after another. But when he formed his party, that is the Bharatiya Jansangh, where did he get the people from? These people were all provided by the Rashtriya Swayamsevak. And Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh is an organization which thinks always in terms of very long-term thinking, very long-term thinking. And therefore, the thinking of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh and the action which was subsequently taken by the Bharatiya Jansangh, they were more or less the same, and they are still being put in action. Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh does not interfere in day-to-day politics, but most of the workers of Bharatiya Jansangh, most of the leaders were from the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, and they drew their inspiration from it, and their thoughts, the thoughts of the great seers, like Dr. G, that is Dr. Hedgewar, then Guruji, that is Param Pujaniya Guru Golwalkar, their thoughts have been put into action, and they are still being put into action. Some of the things that we have already seen are abrogation of Article 370. We will see more. The act of bringing about an uniform civil code, for which there is a provision in the Constitution, for which the Supreme Court has also said that a uniform civil code ought to be provided. We are proceeding towards that. We have taken some small baby steps toward it. So we are on the right track. There is no doubt about it. In the process, there are bound to be some slip-ups, some hiccups, but on the whole, I think we are on the right track. Thank you.
I wanted to understand why the investigation was not done for Shyam Prasad Mukherjee's unnatural death, like for the judiciary, only for the common man in Jammu.
You see, this is a subject on which I held forth today at great length, today morning, in a special address which was organized by the SPMRF, that is the Shyam Prasad Mukherjee Research Foundation, and I spoke at length over this thing. Today, I deliberately did not mention this aspect because it would have lengthened things beyond all proportion. But since you have brought up the question, I must answer this. See, why was this Dr. Mukherjee's death not inquired into by a judicial committee? He had died in incarceration, in captivity, in a place where he was thousands of kilometers away from his family, from his close people, from his party men. Under such circumstances, the way he had died naturally calls forth for an inquiry. Imagine, for Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's disappearance, there had been 5 inquiries, 5. One by the British, one by the Japanese, and 3 by Indians. For Mahatma Gandhi's assassination, Indira Gandhi's assassination, Rajiv Gandhi's assassination. Number of inquiries have been held. Why not for Dr. Shyam Prasad Mukherjee? Very simple reason. Because Nehru was complicit in his death, Nehru stonewalled all demand for inquiries. There were demands from Lok Sabha members, opposition members. There were demands from all over the country. There were demands from doctors who had suspected, very respected doctors, including Dr. B.C. Roy, who had suspected that there had been foul play in his treatment. But none of these worked because Nehru had brute majority. He and his home minister stonewalled all demand for inquiries, and no inquiry was held. Obviously, because they were complicit. It is as a result of their conspiracy that they know that Dr. Mukherjee died. So this is it. Thank you.
Sir,
Thank you.
In continuation to these questions, this is Himadri here. It will be looking little bit odd as of now, but the thing is, for last 6 years, actually, Dr. Samaprasad Mukherjee's party is in power. So why can't they start, whether any legal issue is there, or organization like Swadeshi Sangha or Ramakrishna Mission or whatever other nationalist organizations are there, Nationalist Calcutta, whether any way we can also file a petition, we can give it to the Supreme Court, and we can ask government to start it. If you could elaborate this, that will be really helpful for us. Thank you, sir.
See, you can always approach the Supreme Court. That is the fountainhead of justice, and under Article 32, Article 226, any court can be approached. But the point is, nearly 70 years have elapsed since his death. Most of the people who had involved in with Dr. Mukherjee, who had seen him, who had heard of him, they're all dead now. Balraj Madhok was one of the closest people. I had interviewed him. He is dead. His daughters are both dead. That is Shobita Banerjee and Arati Bhattacharjee. Then his other associates, his sons, Anutosh and Devtosh, they are dead. Who lives on? There's practically no one living on. I was 8 years old then when Dr. Mukherjee had died. So after all these things, it is very difficult to find out what this thing.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे, तव शुभ आशीष मांगे, गाहे तव जय गाथा। जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। जय हे जय हे जय हे, जय 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 हे।